Much for joining us for Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. I'm so glad you could be here with us. We had a big release week today. We had 4 releases, 5 actually, and we're riding high from last week's Upon a Midnight Drury's USA Today list run, which list. So it's been a very good week and a very big week at Dragonblade Publishing. We're glad that you're here to celebrate with us. So joining us today, we have CH Admirand, Jade Lee, and Mary Lancaster. And it's newly minted USA Today bestseller, Mary Lancaster.
We need to hold up a plug to show we're unplugged.
I feel like we should too. So, ladies, thanks for joining us. Like I said, it's been a big week, and by the time you see this, Jade's book will have released today. It's Lord Scott. It's book 1 in a brand new series, Always the Scott, with a cover with a hero that's like, I don't know what, like, he's gonna get whatever he wants.
That good. I can't wait to see the cover.
I don't have my copies yet. Otherwise, I'd be able to go look.
Check it out. Yeah.
Well, I'll put the link in the comments when the video airs, and you all can go find it, and you should get it, and then you should just know that he's gonna get whatever he wants because he has that look on his face.
He is a loving, devoted, loyal, honest, brave, true Scotsman.
Thank goodness, because if he wasn't, he could use his powers for evil. So, and CH, your book is Redirecting the Duke.
The Baron's Greed.
Redirecting the Baron's Greed.
Yep.
I can't. You and Alexa, and I just put 2 titles together in my head. Redirecting the Baron's Greed, which is book 4 in the Lords of Vice series. Yep. So the last book in that series.
The last book, yeah. But I have a character who's in a novella in the holiday collection. So I think it's going to be kind of connected to the Lion's Den book that comes out in February. Cool. And then I have 2 other series. I don't know which one I'm supposed to write because I got, for both. I'm like, okay.
I don't know which one you're supposed to write either. You should pick them.
It's a good problem to have. I too have like 3 or 4 series that are like, well, it's a spin-off.
Yeah. It is a good problem.
The trick is to get caught by one and not go back and forth because you shiny ball.
Yeah. Get scattered.
And Mary, your book is Unmasking Deception, and it's book 2 in the Pleasure Garden series. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. And actually, yours came out first this week. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your book and a little bit about the series, that would be great.
Well, the series is set in. It's called Pleasure Garden, so it's set in a pleasure garden, which is a thing that links all the books in the series. In Unmasking Deception, the heroine is she made a small appearance in the first book, but not very much. But she's the cousin of the hero of the last book, and she's having her first season in London, and she's not thriving. She doesn't enjoy it. She gets all uptight and finds everything too stiff and formal, and is terrified of making a mistake. She has other problems too. She's actually dyslexic, so she can't actually read properly. So her family are very, they think she's stupid. But actually she isn't, obviously. But they're fond of her. They're nice. they're good enough to her. But she is sort of, she does feel she has low self-esteem, I suppose. Anyway, she goes to the pleasure garden with a friend who is not really of the first stair of fashion or rank in society. So they go to this pleasure garden where it's a little bit dodgy, a little bit rough, and there's great excitement that night because there's an escaped convict is hiding somewhere in the park, and they've got the watch and the Bow Street Runners and everybody after them. So, but eventually, of course, she ends up dancing with him, and then discovers that he's actually been injured and that he's the escaped convict. And for some reason, she believes that he's innocent, so she hides him in her family's cellar and has all her little brothers and sisters looking after him. Anyway, it all stems from that. And of course, he's not really guilty of the murder he's been charged with. But the main story is finding out who actually did do it and proving that he is innocent. But even his own family don't believe that he's innocent because he's a bit of a wild guy. And he had actually quarreled with the guy who's dead. And
So there's reason to believe.
There's reason to believe. And also, I think the money that was stolen from the guy was actually found outside his front door. So there's quite a lot of evidence pointing against him. But frankly, he wouldn't be that stupid to leave stuff right outside his front door if he just bumped the guy off. So anyway, that's the basis of the story.
You have a very loaded tagline for that one. Exactly how desperate are you? And when I was putting up the ads, I'm like, I would like to know that as well. Exactly how desperate are you? This is a question I would like the answer to. Yeah,
a desperate criminal. How desperate are you? Pretty desperate, actually.
There do seem to be a lot of heroines hiding heroes. And I'm not sure how often that I know that has never happened for me, that I've never had the occasion to be able to hide anybody in the cellar. But it's like,
no, me neither.
I'd be game. I'd be down for it if
I did once hide my friend in the cellar so she could pretend to be a ghost when I was a small
girl. Did you?
Yeah.
Did the scare work?
Yeah, I did actually. I felt a bit guilty after that because she was a bit younger than us. And I felt that probably wasn't actually very nice. Anyway,
put faces in your jars and put the jars in your refrigerator. And I thought, yeah, I'll do that, and I'll end up with broken glass all over my from the kids dropping jars on the floor. So scaring's always kind of a mixed bag.
My dad was an entomologist, and he did his research on camel crickets. So he had these jars,
the brown ones with the legs, right?
Yeah. But they're soft shelled, so you don't dry them and pin them. You actually put them in jars with this special liquid to preserve them.
Yeah.
So that was always our haunted Halloween basement. Is we take people to see these crickets suspended in jars.
Crickets and goo is kind of extra gruesome. Pinned to a board is bad enough, but in goo would be like that's an extra level.
Yeah. One step.
So how many more books do you have planned in the Pleasure Garden series, Mary?
There's 5 altogether.
Oh, cool.
Yes, 5.
We're just on book 2 now, so we have plenty of time to go.
Right on into next year, so that's good.
Oh, great. Okay, awesome.
Really pretty covers. They're just pretty.
Oh, the covers are gorgeous.
Yeah.
But that's Dar. I've never seen a bad cover from Dar Albert.
No, fabulous.
I have mask envy every time one of them comes up because they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them.
So, Colleen, your book came out next this week. Actually, we had Alexa in the middle. She couldn't be with us today. She's got Delighting the Duke, which is what I did with your with your titles. And that's book 4 in the Duke's Done Wrong series. I'll pop the link in the comments so you all can get that one. And that's her series about the boys that were accused of wrongdoing that they didn't actually do. And that's a continuing one. I think there's one more book in that series that's planned. So, but CH, yours was next, Redirecting the Baron's Greed, and that's the last book in the Lords of Ice series.
Yep, and that came out today. Was fun. I still can't believe that it's actually here. He was the last one. He's actually a distant cousin to the Duke of Windermere, who's the first book was about. And he's hoping to cash in on the familial connection to the Duke and maybe have some funds coming his way because there's never been enough funds. And I have this problem with all of the heroes. None of them really wanted to do what I wanted them to do, but that's nothing new. I talked to them, I convinced them, I really would love them to do this. And they'd be like, oh, no, not today. Tomorrow doesn't look good either. So he didn't really want to be as greedy. None of them really wanted to be as deep into the vice as I had originally planned. So I'm like, well, but anyway, that's my life. Welcome to it. Nobody listens to me. But he did have I really enjoyed working with him and I know that sounds strange because he's not really anywhere except in my head and my heart. But I had to work with him to get him to be greedier than he wanted to be. And it was really interesting that all of a sudden the heroine, who's supposed to be super shy from the events that happened to her being held at knife point in the ball in book 1, was coming out of her shell as well before I was ready for her to. So when they meet, it's really actually quite exciting, but it wasn't planned. And I'd like to say that I have synopses for everything. I really do, but they don't follow them. So it's kind of like writing by the seat of your pants, even though you're like, but no, see right here, this is what you're supposed to do. And they're like, I don't think so. But
You have to get buy-in before you start then.
You know,
sit down, have the stern talking.
I should just, like open up a bottle of wine or a bottle of Irish whiskey and say, okay, let's talk. And then maybe, my stories would go a little easier.
Or they'd have you committed, one of the two. You have to worry about your kids walking in on you with the glasses and
yeah, I've been waiting for that for years because I used both my sons were still living home and when my husband was alive, I would position them around the room because I'd have a fight scene or something and I'd have a heroine who's about this tall and I'd be like, okay, now throw a punch, but okay, no, don't seriously hit me in the chin or the side of my head, but I need you to just throw a really good punch. And they'd be like, okay. I'm like, no, wait. Now remember, you're not supposed to hit mom. And they're like, okay. But
each other, not mom or each other.
So they, and I would talk about my books at the table and they'd be like, Mom, you realize they're not real. I'm like, oh no, they are. Yeah, short trip to crazy, right?
Save on airfare that way.
This is true.
I live about an hour away from Normal, Illinois. It's boring there.
But you can take a day trip to Normal at least. Yeah.
And actually, Normal, Indiana is not that far either.
I'm sorry, what Indiana?
Normal.
Oh, you can
just like there's a Springfield in every state.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why people would figure I want to live in Normal.
Yeah, no.
So Jade, your book, Lord Scott, starts a brand new series.
It's actually the sister in Lord Ares, which is that book.
Right.
She and the Scottish gentleman who was pursuing her were just contrast characters in Lord Ares, and everyone wrote me saying, when am I getting their book?
Yeah.
And I said, I guess I'm gonna write that next. So I originally wrote it as book 4 of the Lords of the Masquerade series, but my agent read it and said, no, this needs to be the launch of a new series of Always a Scott is the name of the series. And so it's like Lord Scott, then we're going to have Lady Scott, and then Almost a Scott.
Cool. So what's the setup for the series? I'm excited about the new series.
It's just a follow on. I mean, it's the first one, Lord Scott, is he needs a wealthy wife to remake his castle. And I mean, he needs the money, but he also happens to love her, which is his big dark secret. He's in love with an English woman. And she's like, no, I am not leaving London. Why would I want to go to Scotland? What is there in Scotland? And he's like, well, I'm there. And, he tries to tempt her. First of all, he has to show her that, Edinburgh is just as vital as London. And she finally begrudgingly, he takes her to see the Encyclopedia Britannica was actually created in Edinburgh.
Oh, cool.
Yes. So she's like, well, okay,
cool.
So you guys are educated and okay, so maybe Scotland isn't so bad, but you don't live in Edinburgh. You want to take me a day's ride to the back of beyond in a drafty, cold castle. And she's like, he tempts her with a ghost story, and she loves ghost stories, and she's going to have to do this anyway. So, okay, fine. She agrees. And it just, every step of the way, he's like saying, you might like it if you try it. And so he's like leading her away, leading her to his home. And once she gets there, then it gets really, there are a lot of people in this little castle village. And I created this whole, I didn't mean to. This is part of how it became a whole series, is I created this whole world in this castle of people.
Accidental world.
Yeah. And so Lady Scott is the woman who has been waiting, that everyone said the two of them would get married. And then, this English woman shows up and
Scott in the second book.
I have been here as chatelaine to your father for a decade waiting for you to get your ass home. And now you bring a woman? What the hell? And well, she doesn't say hell. She says actually a lot more colorful things. And then at the end of that book, she's like, basically, well, to hell with you all. I'm going to go to London and get myself a real, a rich man. But for her, there's perhaps another Scottish lord who's like, maybe.
Looks so far afield.
Yeah, maybe if you turned around. So they have to go to London to actually realize that, there's no place like home.
Oh, cool. I love accidental worlds. Those are the most fun.
Well, and I have like 5 other books in my head just set for this castle.
Wow.
And I had to buy research books. I did the kids ones where you like turn the page and see this is what's in the castle.
Oh, the layers with the holes in between.
Yes,
I love those.
yes. I bought them. I have them because I was like, where did they go to the bathroom? Exactly how did this work?
Yep.
And she wants plumbing. How do we do plumbing?
And stone walls.
Yes. So I ended up, so I hadn't intended to write this book at all, but they were a delightful couple in Lord Ares. So, okay. And then having committed to writing Lord Scott, I created this whole world. And then we now have a whole new series.
Oh, that's exciting.
What you gonna do?
That's exciting. That is very exciting. And I love those layered books. They're the best. The boys had those when they were growing up, and you learn so much about all different kinds of things, how stuff fits together and everything. So Jade is creating accidental worlds, and CH is having her characters talk to her in her head. Mary, do you plot?
I start off, I do plot a bit, but then it never really stays. I plot enough to write a proposal, and then it just sort of a bit like, it wanders off on its own. It kind of stays-ish, but I mean, sometimes even the characters change. But anyway, I don't tell anyone that, and it sort of works out in the end. So.
The best laid plans of authors often go awry.
Yes, sadly.
My agent told me just embrace being a plotter. You do so well when you just go. And I said, okay, because I always allowed like a week of intense plotting where you would get these detailed, complicated things set up, and I never followed them. And she's like, tell you what, how about you just start like you always do? Forget the plotting ahead of time. So
do you miss having that time though, that time to kind of let your brain cook ideas that you haven't?
Well, I take the time and I cook the characters. So rather than saying what will these people do, right. I create the layers.
Right. I always think that when you can fall in love with the characters first, that translates into the book too. There's something about knowing that you're emotionally invested in them that makes it easier for us to invest too. So. But maybe not to the point where you're drinking with them.
Well, it was a
different. Cheers.
You gotta raise it.
Right. It's after 5:00 where you are.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's 7:20 here.
Oh wow.
Sun is well over the Yardarm.
I just love listening to you, Mary. Your voice and your brogue is just like And here I always thought it would have to be a Scotsman that would, but I'm like, no, actually,
It's quite normal right here.
So we had the Upon a Midnight Dreary collection come out last week, and it did phenomenally well. It finished at 108 on the USA Today bestseller list. We had a bunch of authors in there. It's a fantastic collection. It's in Kindle Unlimited now, so if you're reading in Kindle Unlimited, you can get it. But it was 99 cents for a long time, so there really was never a barrier to diving into the ghost stories. But we're moving on from there now to the 2 holiday collections come out next month on the 11th. We have Star of Wonder and Star of Light. And so we've got 28 Dragonblade authors featured in both collections. Do any of you ladies have stories in those?
I do.
I don't. I looked at the schedule and went, I can't get it done in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you had a lot of releases. You're the Lords in the Masquerade and Always a Scot came out really close together.
Yes. Well, and I had 2 of the Lionhearted, but I did the launch title and then Lionhearted, which I'm backwards here.
That's the Abacus Woman one. That's that one with the veil. I like that part. But so, CH, can you tell us a little bit about your holiday story?
Yes, it's called Promise Kept, the Love Unspoken, and it's someone who's a very good friend of the Duke of Windermere, who was rescued by the Duke's father when he was lying very badly injured after the Battle of Trafalgar in the infirmary. So he went home with the Duke's father at that time, and they became friends, and they've known each other for 10 years. And he's when the ship took fire, the cannonball splintered the mast. And I don't know if you've ever seen, I think one of the best movie depictions that I've seen of that was Russell Crowe, Master and Commander.
Mm-hmm.
Show those huge splinters. I'm like, when you say splinter, you think, oh my God, I got a splinter. We're talking about huge hunks. And so he lost an eye, and he lost most of the use in his one arm on the one side. So he's my injured hero, and I kind of fell in love with him. I'm like, well, why can't he have a happily ever after? So he does. He promised to look out for his good friend's wife and young son 10 years earlier. And he's been doing it ever since, but he fell in love with her along the way. So this is their love story.
What's the carol? All those stories are based on carols, aren't they?
Yes. As soon as I saw the post in the author's loop, I was like, oh, the Holly and the Ivy just started playing in my head. I've always loved that song. And I'm like, well, the holly is supposed to be for protection, or is it the ivy's protection in the holly? You know what? I'm on deadline right now with a different story. So trying to remember characters that I'm.
So one is protection and the other one is.
You got me. I can't remember. I'm sorry, but this is deadline brain.
But we can
maybe it's
the holly and the ivy to ourselves for the rest of the day. So that.
It's really not deadline brain. It's just my brain. So sorry. Don't try to pick
the crown. I remember that part. Of all the trees that are in the woods, the holly wears the crown.
Right, but in ancient English folklore, I don't have my notes with me. Well, I'm sorry.
So
I do, but if
I shouldn't have caught you off guard with the carol thing. But I love that the Halloween anthology was all ghost stories and like based on ghost stories, and that the holiday anthologies were based on carols.
Yeah, and it didn't matter if there was more than one of the same carol because your take on it is totally different.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Mary, you have a book in the collection too, and is it CH? Is it Star of Wonder or Star of Light for yours?
Star of Wonder.
Star of Wonder. Okay, and Mary, you've got one in the collection too.
Yeah, mine's a Star of Light though. Yeah, mine's based on God Rest You Merry Gentlemen.
I like that one too.
Because it's part of the series, the Crime and Passion series, where it was all the titles were all some kind of lover, so I called it Mary Lover.
Oh, cool. Mary Merry.
Yes, nice. Mary Lover, and it's the idea is the heroine of the first Crime and Passion book. Her husband has gone away to Edinburgh and he's meant to be back by Christmas, but he's not back yet. But it starts, and then she's missing him like anything, and then she opens the door and finds this dead body just sitting outside, and he's got a big smile on his face.
Happy holidays to you.
So,
so it's a zombie book, or
that was last week.
That yeah. That classic zombie carol.
No. He's quite a sweet dead person. There's dead people. Anyway, she spends her time finding out about him. And yeah.
So
And
the first book in the Crime and Passion series, that was the one where she had the glasses on and her hair pulled back. Is that right?
that's right. Yes.
I love the cover for that one.
Yeah.
I thought the cover and the character description was so interesting. Cool. The God Rest You Merry Gentlemen is also a hum-worthy cartoon, or a hum-worthy carol, one you can keep in the back of your head all the time.
Yeah, it was in my head the whole time I was writing it, and for about 3 weeks after it as well. It was driving me nuts.
Just inconvenient at the end of the summer, I would imagine. But
yeah, just a tad. But anyway, it's nearly Christmas now, so I can just keep going.
Cool. So we'll be having, we had a release party for Upon a Midnight Dreary. We'll be having 2 release parties for the holiday collections, one on the 11th and one on the 12th. If you look on the Dragonblade publishing page, you should be able to find the links to those really easily. And make sure you're there for both of them, because all of the authors in the collection will be there telling stories about their books, talking about the inspiration, and giving giveaways all day long. So you definitely want to make sure that you don't miss those. I know I love that part, and I love it when we get to talk to the author. Well, obviously, I love it when we get to talk to the authors, because that's my favorite part. So. So, ladies, can you talk a little bit about what you have coming up next? I know, Jade, you said you had 5 books in your head for the world that you've created. Is that
Lady Scott comes next? She's the one who has just stormed off saying, "I'm finding a good man in London, and forget y'all." And then there's, he's actually a very highly ranked Scotsman who said, "Well, now that you've stopped waiting for this moron, maybe you'll look over here." But I'm playing a lot with men who it's a Regency trope for the men saying, "Oh, I never want to get married," and then he's caught. But these are men who's like, "Look, I know your worth. I see your worth. I have known you for, since we were 2. And I mean, in this case, he's known her forever. And I love you, you moron. Get over here."
I love that kind of hero. Like that whole idea of someone who actually sees you. That's incredibly seductive. I love that. I love that idea. That's fantastic. And maybe he will have one of those faces too, because the first guy, I'm serious. Because I got the cover late for that, because I had the old cover when it was still part of the Lords and Masquerade series, and I the cover was like, dude could rule the world. Mary, what do you have coming up next?
It'd be the next one in the Pleasure Garden series, which is Unmasking Sin, which is about a lady who her family are accusing her of murdering her husband. And they're out to get her, basically, but she doesn't really know why. And the man that they send to investigate her ends up falling in love with her. And naturally at the Pleasure Garden. So,
well, yeah.
And then there's Unmasking the Duke, which I've almost finished writing.
Oh my goodness! So you got far.
Finally, Unmasking the Thief, and that should be the end of that series. And after that, there is actually a series of novellas, a sort of spin-off novellas called Gentlemen of Pleasure. Which have got amazing covers as well, which I haven't actually shown anybody yet, but they're very, very cool. Or not cool, actually, that's the wrong word. Anyway, you'll like them.
They're very hot.
Yes, pretty much.
They know what they want, and they know how to get it.
That's the... I have a type.
Well, that's what's on my brain. So,
right. And so you have 2 series. You're not sure which one you're going to do next.
Yes, I do. The Duke's Guard was one of the names, but it may end up being the O'Malleys of England. I'm not really sure, but they're part of the Lords of Vice series. I have the O'Malleys, the Garahans, the Polarities. So they're very strong characters and tried to take over. That happens to me all the time. I have a secondary character. I'm like, not yet. And they'll still be like, but, and then I have, and it happened when I was writing the novella, the Christmas novella. Captain Coventry has other friends that have suffered through injuries and whatever in the different branches of the King's military.
All need to be happy now.
Well, yeah, and he's formed a group, and they're undercover actually, but they're going about as if they are a man of affairs, and the husbands die kind of rather tragically that he's working for, and the widows are suddenly like, what's going on, and then nefarious things happen. So it's got a lot of mystery in there, but so
Various things.
yeah, so
I always admire people who can write mysteries because I fail at that.
well, it's not supposed to be a mystery. It's supposed to be romance. But, when the dead body shows up, it's like, okay.
As they do.
They
Somebody
do.
at the door, but maybe it'll be a nice one. Mary had a nice
He'll
dead
be
body.
smiling. He'll be very merry.
Yeah, well, this seems a little more grisly. I'm not
We're not
really-
all Mary.
they can't all be happy dead people.
Exactly.
That's true.
But well, yeah, but sometimes, yeah. But anyway, so I have those two that I'm working on, and then my Lion's Den book comes out in February. I'm almost done with that. He's the character that's giving me fits. Rescued by the Lion. Yeah.
Ooh, nice title.
Yeah, it is a nice title.
Thanks.
Cool. Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it, and I love hearing about what's coming up, and I love hearing about the process, your writing process. I think we should save the video in case anybody comes for CH, and we can say, really, when she's talking to somebody, it makes sense, and it's not. We can all be character witnesses if we need to.
I heard a story this morning. It was on Stephen Colbert last night about the character of Josh Lyman on The West Wing. They were actually filming outside the White House, and he was running lines and getting passionate.
Mm-hmm.
And the Secret Service arrested him because they thought he was a crazy person.
Wow.
And he was like, no, I'm an actor. And they figured it out quickly enough. But it's like they had this guy, talking to himself in front of the White House. And that was very bad.
Okay, I could see how that would be concerning. That,
Yeah.
Even before we had the extra fencing, that would be
Very
concerning.
true.
Yeah.
Ladies, thanks again for taking the time to talk to us. I'll pop the links for all of this week's releases. Catherine Levesque had a release this week too. The Dark Conqueror came out on Thursday. So we have had a very, very busy week. So I'll put the link to all of those and also to the 2 holiday collections. Make sure you get that on your calendar so you don't miss the release parties because they're a huge amount of fun. They're back-to-back November 11th and 12th. Both the collections come out on the 11th. It is 14 authors in each collection with stories that will make you all warm and holiday tingly. I'm and now that we've scared everybody, we're gonna warm things up.
We'll warm them up.
I'm very ready for that. So thanks again, ladies, and we'll talk to everybody next week, same time.
Sounds great. Thanks. Bye.